Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Sammy and I just retired. How did I do it? We're going to go through many of the mistakes that I made and many of the good things that I did and many of the lessons that I learned over the 30 years of investing and saving. And I'm going to share all of that with you along with the journey that took me from my first job to my last job. So here we go. Obviously, there's a lot to uncover in my 30-year journey, so we're not going to be able to cover all of that in this video. But I just wanted to get started with this one, and then make a lot of videos in the future to go over the different stages. The video is not about my life; it's more about the investment in finance and the decisions that I made and what I learned and those kind of things. This is all related to investing in finance and not really related to my personal life itself, which is not, something that any of you would be interested in anyway. So where did I start? My first job, and I got in '93, and at that time I was more interested in paying off my student loans. Although my student loans were not anywhere near the student loans that I see people carry these days, it was still a decent amount because the salaries were also a lot lower back in the day than it is today. But relatively speaking, I think I had a far less student loan than certainly my wife had. So when I got the first job, I was not interested in saving anything because I just wanted to pay off all the loans. For some reason, I was just averse to debt. And now that is going to come as a blessing in disguise later on because that was one of the things that saved me from getting into large debts, which if I was not careful, I could have easily fallen into that trap. Anyway, so after my student loans were paid off in the first year or so, then I had this discussion, it was like an annual review or something, and my boss was very nice, and he was an avid investor. I had not the slightest clue about investing. Just to give a little bit of a background of mine, I kind of grew up in a low-income, middle-class family, so to speak, and my parents, especially my dad, although he was working for a bank, he didn't know anything about finance, ironically speaking. So he had not much savings, and he was depending on pension, which was not adjusted for inflation, and he just had no basic understanding of finance at all. So after he retired, when inflation started kicking in, his income, the pension that he was getting was very low, and it was almost 10 years later practically worthless because of inflation. But his house was paid off, so we made sure that him and my mom had a dignified life, because it didn't take much where they were living to make a decent living. So we were able to finance and make sure that he was able to have a dignified life. And now they're both passed on. So what did I learn from that? What I learned from that was I knew in my heart that that is not a situation that I wanted to find myself in. I don't want to be at the mercy of someone else. So which means I should be self-sufficient. Even if I'm not living a lavish lifestyle later on in life, at least I didn't want to be at the mercy of somebody else trying to fund my retirement. That much I knew for sure. I had no idea how to get there, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So anyway, coming back to my annual review, I had a good review, and then he was telling me, I hope you're taking advantage of our retirement plan. And then I was asking him what retirement plan, because it was not even my radar to retire. I mean, that's like 40 years from now. What the heck are you talking about? I don't care about retirement. I care about today. I'm thinking about what I need to buy, and now that I've paid off my student loans, I got to buy a new car and all that stuff. And he said, "No, man, you get a tax break when you contribute to this thing." He said, when he said this thing, he was referring to the 401k. I had no idea. I knew nothing about investing. I knew nothing about 401k, all that. So a couple of weeks later, they had somebody come from the investment firm and then talk about 401k, which I knew nothing about. Keep in mind that this was in those days, in the early to mid 90s. The internet is nowhere near what it is today. Nobody was Googling for anything, you know. That is when Yahoo was slowly taking off. But anyway, so long story short, we had to, whatever was available, you know, was through word of mouth and people like this coming and giving a lecture on 401k investment plan, and everything he said was news to me, right? And he was talking about if you contribute this for the amount that you contributed, you don't have to pay any taxes, you know. Then that caught my attention. If I don't have to pay Uncle Sam, great, you know, I want to do that. And so what's going to happen? So he said, we invest in these kind of funds. Didn't have any idea what was mutual funds. I knew what stocks were, but I didn't have any idea what mutual funds were. But then, so what happened was, that's when Morningstar started becoming popular. This was like in 95. I had another friend of mine who was like a Morningstar junkie, and he was just totally into mutual funds. And so he spent a couple of days teaching me about these things. And for some reason, I just got into it. And so I just saw this as a vehicle for my success financially. So I really started getting into it, and I started, you know, logging into Morningstar. I still have that same account that I created 30 years ago in Morningstar today, and I use it every day today, every day. No kidding. Not as actively as I used to, because, you know, I've learned quite a bit, and things that used to take time is kind of become like second nature to me. It's, you know, it's part of what I do in the morning. Just look at the portfolio. I have my portfolio and everything designed in the morning. So I'm going to cover all of that, and I do have, you know, a premium membership. So I will talk about the features and how to use Morningstar and all that in one of the future videos. Anyway, here what I want to tell you is, you know, this is not, you know, something that I'm trying to sell. This is not a marketing channel. I want to share my journey, and I want to educate you and teach you, because the best investment advice that I can give you is be educated. Educate yourself. Okay, learn as much as you can. Don't depend on someone else to tell you what you shouldn't and shouldn't do. The moment you get to that state, you're at someone else's mercy. And believe me, the finance industry is full of unscrupulous folks. There are a few who are really good and they mean good for you, but they are just few and far in between. Everybody wants a piece of your pie. When the pie starts getting bigger, they want the bigger chunk of it. Especially when you talk about financial advisors who are percentage-based, 2% of your investment, 1% of your investment. And then what do they do? They just take that money and dump them into index funds. You could have done that yourself for free, like Warren Buffett says, right? Financial advisors are the worst investors. That's my experience. Now, if you don't want to educate yourself and you want to put yourself in a situation where you want to be, you need somebody to advise, my advice is go to a fee-based advisor. I have not used any because I spent the time to educate myself, because it's my money, and the only person who cares the most about my money is me. Nobody else has any vested interest in my money more than I do. So I took, the good news for you is it's really not hard at all. As Warren Buffett says, I have followed Warren Buffett's philosophy in my investing, and I've been following him for decades. And that is the best thing that I've ever done for myself. Following him as in, you know, things like he says, don't invest in things you don't understand. You're guaranteed to lose money, or even if you get in trouble, you just wouldn't know how to get out of it. And he's absolutely right. So I've never delved into things that really got the financial crisis in full swing, because they started investing in derivatives and a bunch of things, all like voodoo. I don't do any of that. My investment philosophy is very simple. You know, I invest in stocks that I believe in. I will talk about how to analyze a financial report and how to determine stock, but that you don't even need to do that. It is good enough if you understand stocks well enough, and then pick up in a good index fund that go and invest in those kind of stocks. I keep saying index funds because I have been investing for 30 years. I've invested in all kinds of mutual funds except load mutual funds. I only invest in no load mutual funds and no transaction fee mutual funds. Occasionally, I've had a few funds where they charge you transaction fee, $50 or $75, because they're the returns were considerably better for a period of time. But my long term, my own research and my own personal experiences clearly taught me that there's nothing to beat index funds. And when I talk about index funds, I'm not just talking about S&P 500. I'm a huge investor, heavily focused on tech stocks, which is Nasdaq, which these days they're like 3-4 trillion companies, and they fall under the large growth or large. Some are under the large value category, but there are index funds which I will talk about in one of the future videos, along with all the tools that I use. So going back to my investment, the lecture that this person gave that day literally changed my life. Although he was talking about investing and putting money into their funds, I didn't know. My company wouldn't tell me exactly how they're investing it, but I did know that I was getting in 95 through 99. I was getting about 23 to 24% return. And if you look at the S&P 500, there was about 3 or 4 years period in that time. I can't remember exactly, but where I had solid returns. That helped me quite a bit. The funniest thing is, in the early 2000s, I also lost money like everybody else for 3 years in a row, and it just started getting progressively worse. I think it was 2000, 2001, 2002. I think that was the dot-com bubble burst, where my investment also went down. But the thing is, because my investments were going up when I started investing, which is actually a huge plus, I knew I could see my money grow, and that juiced me to add more money. So when I lost money, on paper, this is all on paper, right? When I lost money on paper, it didn't bother me because my boss had told me that if it goes down, you buy more because you're buying it cheap, just like you buy something at a discount. You buy more. That's what you do, because eventually it's going to go back up, just like you saw in the last 4 years. And I believed him, and he was right, and I'm glad I did. And so until the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009, which wiped about 60% of my investment. But then again, I bought more. I wish I had more money to buy more. And then, Anyway, so there's lots of ups and downs when it comes to investing. And long story short, I'm in my mid-50s, and I just retired last month. So how did I know that it was time for me to retire? When you know that your retirement income is able to generate enough money for you over the long term that is going to compensate for the salary that you're making, then that's a good time for you to seriously consider retirement. I don't have a lavish lifestyle. I don't have desire to go travel in a private jet or buy expensive cars, but I have more than enough for my lifestyle. And I like to travel, and I don't buy good things that makes you feel good, but nothing overly extravagant or over the top, so to speak. So what I learned over the last 30 years, which I'm going to pick on more detail later on in another video, would be I decided that for my lifestyle, the best way to get to where I want to get to is to invest as much as possible early on. And luckily, that's where I started. And in my next video, I'm going to go through the different stages of my investment. And as I do it, I'm also going to be talking about, I also want to touch on many tools that I have used. And I currently use a tool that many of these financial gurus portray as this voodoo software that only they have, that's going to magically transform your vision from wanting to be a millionaire to actually making you a millionaire. And without that software and without paying them all this money, you can't do it. That's completely untrue. I will show you the tool that I've used. A couple of tools that are paid tools, but they're not very expensive at all. They're pretty cheap for considering what they have to offer. I'm also going to walk you through tutorials of how to use those tools so that you can do it yourself. Now, the free versions of these tools are going to be a lot. They don't have as many features, obviously, than the paid version, but they have more than enough features for you to get into it and just get an idea of where you stand. I mean, you won't be able to dot the I's and cross the T's in terms of, figuring out exactly what your strategy should be, but it puts you in the ballpark. These tools are much better than just Googling for retirement calculators and it just spits out a number without taking any other things into consideration. That is more of a glorified compound interest calculator. That's not what you want. So we'll be talking about some tools that's truly going to help you determine what your strategy should be and all that in one of the future videos. I'm working on it. I just want to script that properly so that I'm able to present that to you without wasting your time. Thank you for listening, and just stick around on the channel. Everything that I put in here is going to be provided to you for free. The goal of this channel, let me put it this way, is to make you understand, teach you how to be financially self-sufficient and financially educated so that you can make your own informed decisions that suits your situation, whatever that may be. Again, I am talking, most of the things that I talk about here is going to be based on what applied to me personally and what worked for me. I've gone through many stages, so it's probably going to be applicable to most of you. Some of your situations may vary, but anyway, I hope. If you do have specific things in the future, please mention them in the comments, and let's make this interactive. And I can definitely do what I can to take those comments into consideration and make future videos, tailor them so that you're benefited. Again, these videos are going to be made purely with the intent of being a benefit to you. So with that, I'm going to end this video. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.